Hello and welcome. My name is Alex and this is part 2 of my hard surface tutorials in Blender. In the first one we went over the basics and what programs I use, and if you haven't seen it then I will leave a link in the description for you. In this video I will be making this low and high poly silencer. This one is the low poly. Let me pull up the wireframe. So as you can see, it is very low poly for the amount of detail that it has. And that's because I made the low poly and then I made a high poly from the low poly mesh and then baked the details back onto this. I'll have a link in the description for the reference image that I'm using, which I do not own and I just pulled it off of Google Images. And then in the next video I'm going to be taking it into Substance Painter to bake the maps and texture it. And I'll show you how I work in Substance Painter, which is how you get scratches along the edges like this, grunge, stamps, a lot of it. So let's get started. So first I'm going to press N and start my screencast display, which is displayed right up here. And then I'm going to go to background images, press add image, open, then I'm going to find my, where is it? There it is. My reference image, and just open that. And if you want, you can pick front, and so it will be displayed on top of the mesh, whereas if you hit back, then it would be displayed behind the mesh. If you do front, I would suggest turning down the opacity some, just so it's easier to see. And it's actually slightly tilted, so let's go ahead and use the rotation to straighten that out as best we can. That looks pretty good. -0.1. It's a small difference, but it helps. And so we're going to tab into edit mode and just start to get the basic shape. So press Z to go into wireframe so you can select the front and back vertices. Press B to box select, drag it up. Same thing on the top. And because this is kind of perspective warped, so this is actually a straight line across the front of the silencer, as well as that is a straight line and that is flat. But because of the perspective, it kind of makes it harder to gauge where it should be. So I just base it off of the frontmost line, because as it goes back it comes in. So we're just going to base it off of that, which means that it's going to come out to there, and then it has a little tiny lip on it right there before it actually curves inwards. So I'm going to make an extrusion for that, and then one last extrusion there. And then over here we can just drag this to the back, like so. So now we've got a basic block that's the height and width that we need it. So now I'm just going to guesstimate the width. So I'm going to say that probably looks good. We can tweak it later on if we need to. And now we need to add the curves at the top and the bottom. So add a loop cut with Control and R and drag it up to there. Add another one for the bottom, and then use box select to select the bottom and the top vertices. And so now what we're going to do is just scale them inward along the y-axis, which will bring it in like that. So we've already got the basic shape done. So now with the front, we're going to select those two front vertices like that. And so if you look at it, it kind of starts to like curve inward in that first front part. So that's the first vertex, that's the second one. So we're going to scale it in just a little bit, and then we are going to deselect that one. And also you can use Alt and Shift to deselect or select edge loops. So just another little hotkey there. And now going to scale that more inwards, and we want to make sure that it's fairly even around, which it looks like it is. It might be able to come in on the Y a little more. Yeah, just like that. And now let's see, We need to get those cutouts. We also need to, if you look at other reference images, let me pull some up. If you look at some images of the front of the suppressor right here, you'll see that it actually goes in before, like it's not just flat on the end, it has a like concave bit. So we're going to make that as well, and I think we're going to do that first and then cut out those little circles. So that would just be easier. So select those faces, and to inset it, we use I. There's really not much of a lip here, so we can leave it probably about there. Then extrude it back to line up with that right there. So now you've got a shape looking like that, so it's looking better. Now, let's see, what should we do next? I guess cut those out. Here we go. So we're going to grab a cylinder, let's take it down to, let's do 16 vertices instead of 32. And to do that, I just bring up the toolbar with T if you don't have it open. And at the bottom, right after you add it, you'll have an option to change cylinder options. So I'm just going to change it to 16 vertices instead of 32. And now drag it over to there. And this is where I'm going to be using hard ops. So you do need to have that if you would like to follow along. I mean, I guess for this one you don't really need it. You can just use normal booleans in Blender. But I'm going to use hard ops. So I'm going to rotate it along the x-axis 90 degrees so that it's laying horizontal to the silencer, and then just kind of get it kind of lined up. They're more shallow, so there we go, that's looking better. And then scale it so it will clip through both sides of it, because those are the chunks that we want to take out, is where this and this intersect. And then I'm just going to apply the scale with Control A, just so nothing gets weird. And then select this first, the cylinder, and then select the silencer, and then press Q to bring up the hard ops menu and pick slash. And that will just cut out that part from the mesh. So now you can see we've got nice little cutouts. But before we do that, I'm going to undo all of that and then actually just duplicate this one and drag it down in edit mode so that they're part of the same object. Select that and slash. And there we go. So the shading does look a little funky, and that is because we have this tiny lip right here, but it's not sharp enough to want to get sharpened by hard ops. So if we were to set that sharp on our own, it looks a lot better. Still some weird shading issues up here because of that and that. But we'll fix all that later because it auto sharpens anytime you use a boolean. So I'm going to go ahead and add another cylinder, go into edit mode, rotate it 90 degrees. I'm holding control so that it snaps it to increments, but you can also just type in 90 if you want. So if I just press 9 and 0, it'll snap it to 90. You can do that for any increment. And now I'm going to scale it down. It actually takes up most of the space there, so I'm going to do that and then slide it up to about there. And now that goes all the way through the silencer because that's where the bullets travel. So now I'm going to select this one first, the cylinder, then the silencer, and slash. Then delete that part and delete the cylinder. And now we've got the basic shape of a silencer. And so now I don't believe we're going to do any more cuts. I think this is actually mostly done. I mean, you won't be able to see that because it's going to be put up against a gun most of the time. We have the cutouts. Yeah, I think it's ready to get the shading fixed. So basically what you're going to want to do is find all of the parts with weird shading, like right here. And you're going to want to basically make sure that all of the edges, especially because this right now is an n-gon, it's not just 4 vertices connected, it's got a lot of different vertices, which really isn't good. Later on we're going to triangulate it. And you're going to want to find all of the edges and sharpen them, and you do that by, so say you have those selected, so that you're going to sharpen the outline of that face. You're going to press Q and just set C sharp. S sharp, sorry. And that will fix the shading. So now you have a nice flat face, those are smoothed, all that. And so you're just going to want to do that around the entire perimeter. Like that, and then Q, set sharp, and there we go. So now our shading is looking a lot better on the front here. Actually, it's still a little funky right there. Should probably sharpen that edge loop. So I used Alt and right clicked to select that edge loop, and then set sharp. There we go. No, I might actually just take that edge loop out. No, I'll keep it. Okay, so that is the low poly, so we're done with that. Nice and easy. So now what we're going to want to do is save this as, let's do silencer_LP for low poly. Save that, and then press Control Shift and S to save as, and then just change it to silencer high poly. So now we have a duplicate file of it, and if we make changes, it's going to turn it into a high poly mesh. So what we're going to want to start with is, let's see. So first I'm just going to sharpen it. And you can see there's a lot of weird clipping issues where the bevels overlap like that, if you can see. Because it starts to bevel those two edges and then they meet in the center and just overlap. But if you just had super tiny bevels, that doesn't look right. You can barely even tell there's bevel at all. So the way you fix this is, so you find a bevel width that you're happy with for the main part of it. So that looks pretty good. That bevel right there and all around. It's looking pretty solid. It doesn't overlap in most of the places. And let's check back here. Yeah, looking pretty solid. Okay, so real quick, first what I'm going to do before I fix those issues with clipping is chop up the silencer into its different parts. So we got a block that is bigger than the silencer and slide it down to that line so that it encompasses the back part that's going to be a separate object. Select the cube first, then the silencer, and slash. And just like that, we have a nice clean break. Super easy. And it also does cut the inside of it, but I figure you won't really be able to see that anyways in the final mesh, so now add another cube to do the same thing up front with this little break. So I'm just going to move it up there, so that actually lines up with that. So that's going to get a little funky. So I think what I'm going to do is slide it back a little bit. And then, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and slash that. I'm going to hide this instead of deleting it with H, just in case we need it later. And so now you can see, because we did it a little bit behind that original vertice, that we have some extra edge loops that we don't need. So let's see, if we, first off, let's remove doubles just by pressing spacebar to search and then pressing remove doubles. Didn't remove any. Let's up the merge distance just a touch. Okay, remove 2. I only did that because when I was clicking here I could see that there were 2 separate vertices that were there, which shouldn't be. Oh, you know what, I didn't even think of that. That's alright, we can fix that. Okay, so I'm going to use Alt and right click this second loop cut right here. And then down here there's an option called Auto Merge. It's really handy if you have extra loop cuts that you want to get rid of. You could just do X and delete edge loops. That actually works perfectly fine. So, but what I was going to show you, just in case you would like to use this later, it's kind of handy. Turn on Auto Merge, press G twice, and it will slide the vertices along the edges that they're on, and then if you just bring them up to there and click, then it will merge them. So basically it does the same thing. This actually also has, this is what I was talking about. If you zoom in really close, you can see there are two separate vertices, and that makes for some weird beveling issues right here, because it comes up and then suddenly you have two vertices making an n-gon. And if you did it by hand, just select that one and then select the stray vertice and then the main one, then Alt and M to merge, and this combines two vertices, so you can do it at the first one you selected, which would be the stray vertice. We don't want that. We want to do it at the last one we selected. Now you can see our bevel is nice and straight. So we want to make sure there's no other weird bevel problems around. There's probably one on the same side opposite, yeah. And if you wanted to, you could mirror all of this. It would probably make it a little bit easier. You don't have to merge 2 times. But, oh well. So now what I'm going to do is, oh, those aren't actually, so this is a weird thing with hard ops. Sometimes it will sharpen them shading wise, but it won't add bevel weight to it. And that is if you're in edge select like this, and there's dark blue and then there's light blue. And you're going to have to select all of the light blue ones yourself. And then just sharpen them again. Whoops. Like that. I believe that's all of them, yeah. So set sharp. There you go. So now they're all actually beveled. And then if you press Shift and G, then you can select similar. So this is super handy if you want to select, for example, similar sharpness. You can select all of the sharp edges in a given model, which makes it super easy to, there you go. So now we've got all those, and the reason I did that is so now, if I deselect that and that, I'm going to leave those the same size because they don't really need to get touched, the bevels. I like the way that looks. It flows seamlessly in, and yeah, but bevels like this need to be smaller because they clip, and actually that doesn't clip. It comes close, but it's alright. Does it? No, I think it actually does a little bit, yeah. So I'm going to shrink all of these bevels by pressing Q and B weight. That is the weight of the bevels. And so 0, and you can turn it up. There you go. And normally I find usually 0.2 to 0.3 if you need to shrink bevels, but it really just depends on your model. So now you can see they don't clip. It looks nice and clean. I'm even gonna do it to this one because that just looks a little odd. So bevel weight, and then bring that up. There you go. Looks a little better. Okay, so now last part that we need to do are these 3 dashes. So for this, I am actually going to mirror it. So let me hide this part just so that I can get this isolated for the most part. And so loop cuts, they don't like n-gons or triangles. They only like quads. So right here you can see that's a nice quad, and that is a nice quad, but this is a single face with who knows how many vertices, a lot. Actually, while we're here, we need to actually fix this, because you don't usually want edge just going into another edge all weird like that when it could just do that, you know? So I'm going to merge those up. It's probably the same way on the other side somewhere. No? Wow. Okay. So now what we are going to do. So the edge loop would just stop right there, which is fine. I mean, we can fix it. Put another one up on top. And because the cylinder that we cut out has a vertex at the top and the bottom, we can select the end of the edge loop that we just added and the bottom of the cylinder that we cut out. And if you press J, it will connect those with an edge, which is super handy for retopology or fixing topology. And so just do that around, and there you go. Now you have a model that is cut in half that you can mirror, just like that. And so basically what I do is I find the center of the model, which is right there, and I select all of the vertices to the edge, to the other side, not the edge of that. And then I will just delete those vertices. Another option is you select an entire half of the model like that, and then you can delete the faces. Both does the same thing. I just find it easier to avoid the center when you have a lot of vertices that get close to the center, and then to delete the vertices. And now go over to your Properties panel and the Modifiers tab and add a mirror modifier. Right now it's mirroring along the x-axis, so it flips it that way, which we don't want. We want it along the y. Uncheck the x and check clipping so that it glues them together like that. Okay, so actually, you know what? That won't do much because okay. I'm just going to go ahead and apply that. Don't add a mirror modifier yet, because I forgot if you try to use a boolean when you have a mirror modifier on, it just gets all weird and ugly and funky. So I'm just going to add a cube and drag it over here, get it to the approximate width of those lines, so about like that, and then I'm going to drag the bottom up right about there, and then drag the top up just above to where that one ends, and then duplicate it and use Shift and R to repeat the last action. And because I duplicated it and moved it a certain distance at one action, I can just, it's really handy for setting up like rough arrays, I guess would be a word for it. So I'm going to grab the side that's over there, and then I'm going to want to drag it over and have it intersect just a little bit, probably about that much. If you wanted to, you could try and line it up, because here, let me just go ahead and show you an example. If I move this, oh, wrong way. If I move this way, the height of where that ends is going to be exactly right there. So I actually got it just about spot on, but you can see as I change that, it'll slide up or down the slope, and once it's right about there, you know that you have it the correct depth and all of that. I'm going to set that back to 0 so that it still lines up. Let me close all those menus. And so now we can select these first, and then this, and slash it, and that will cut those chunks out. Easy as that. And I can't tell if they're overlapping. Let me see real quick. No, they look fine, so we can just leave that. So now we want to mirror it. Now that we have those cut out, this side doesn't, we want to delete the side that does not have them and add a mirror modifier to the y-axis with clipping. So now, boom, there we go. And so now I think that will just about complete this. I mean, we've got all the parts we need. So this is the high poly bake. It's going to take all the details like the brakes, the bevels. Ooh, actually, what happened there? Huh. Oh, you know what? It's because that's marked sharp. We don't want that to be sharp. Yeah, there we go. That looks a lot better. You know what? These also got marked sharp for some reason. There we go. What the heck? Everything got marked sharp. Okay. So I'm just going to go through here real quick. Deselect all of these because they should not be marked sharp. I think it's because whenever we selected it, it selected the entire face instead of just those. So, and you have to hit it twice because it will set it back to 1 because they weren't 1. Dark blue lines are less than 1 bevel weight and light blue are 1. Okay, there we go. That's looking good. So yeah, this is high poly. It's going to transfer all of the normal maps onto our low poly, which is how you get a giant flat face like that has breaks in it like that. That concludes the low and high poly silencer. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed it, drop a like. If you're new, hit the subscribe button for more upcoming tutorials. Thank you.